morning and welcome to Connecting Point Radio. CP Radio is a podcast produced by Connecting Point. The podcast is designed for IT professionals to show real-world solutions to IT problems. This podcast is not sponsored by any vendors, and the information expressed in the podcast is part industry best practice and part real-world experience. CP Radio is copywritten 2021. All rights are reserved by Connecting Point, and this program will be recorded. Today's topic is cybersecurity best practices, and I'm your host, Dan Durkee. Good morning. I'd like to talk just a little bit about cybersecurity practices and things that all of us should be aware of as far as cybersecurity. Likely, it's not going to be earth-shattering for everybody, but I think what you're going to find is I'm going to give you a few tips. We'll talk maybe just a little bit about some solutions that Connecting Point has, and we will also delve into maybe some other issues as far as some statistics and a few things like that. So again, if you have questions, please send a question to our conversation in Teams, and I will do my best to answer the question, and if not, we will answer the question following today's presentation. So, 10 cybersecurity best practices that everybody should know. First off, let's talk about a few facts. Graphis and Kaseya is probably the most recent ransomware and cybersecurity webinar that I attended. Cybersecurity attacks have increased 600% compared to pre-COVID, over 150% this summer. 90% of cybersecurity attacks begin with phishing email. So it's not like the security on your network is bad. More often than not, your users are getting fooled into clicking a phishing email. 78% of IT leaders say the C-suite is most likely to be targeted. So if you're familiar with Connecting Point, Brian Wagey is our CEO and company president. Every so often, we will get a quote-unquote email from Brian Wagey that says, hey, send me a gift card, or hey, click this link. And so you have to be very careful, and you need to start implementing maybe some better email security solutions, better email scanning, things like Microsoft Defender, the advanced threat protection renamed with Microsoft. Global losses from cybercrime amount to someplace in the neighborhood of $1 trillion per year. So why are people doing so much cybercrime? Because cybercrime, ransomware pays off. People are finding that they are having to pay the ransomware, and they're having to pay the ransomware because they're not successfully doing some things to prevent the ransomware issues. Average loss from a compromised email for a medium-sized company is $130,000. Think about what would happen in your company if you had to have 30 employees all idle for a day because you didn't properly manage your losses. And cyber attacks in the distributed workforce is a very significant threat. More and more of us are working from home, and we're not doing some of the things that we need to do to secure our connection. Cybersecurity insurance and audits. In the coming year, I think all of us, especially businesses, are going to be struggling to meet all of the demands of cybersecurity insurance and audits. There's more and more requirements in order for a business to get cyber insurance. Traveler's insurance is one. It says travel, sorry, it's traveler's insurance. Super restrictive. Here's some of the requirements for traveler's insurance. The underwriting information. Most of this is pretty straightforward. Is your firewall up to date? No problem. Do we have antivirus on computers, network? But here's the kicker. Look at that other one. Is antivirus software on your mobile devices? Why is that important? Because in the last couple of days, the iPhone has found a vulnerability. And so, in case you're not aware of that vulnerability and you have an iPhone or an iPad, you should be updating to 14.8 for the software level to block that virus. We need to have a process in place to regularly download and install patches. We need to be doing backup and recovery. And all of these things are asked about in the traveler's insurance application form. Okay, the next group that travelers has, this is the kicker. Is multi-factor authentication required for all employees when accessing email through a website or cloud-based services? I guarantee you, we cannot answer yes to that question for everybody that's on this meeting. So not every company, not every person is doing multi-factor authentication to get their email. Travelers insurance is going to require that. So as you renew your cybersecurity insurance, you may run into some issues like this. Is multi-factor authentication required for all remote access to the network? Well, if you're using a VPN access, you can probably argue that the answer is yes. In addition to remote access, multi-factor authentication is required for the following. Get this: all internal and remote admin access to directory service. Not a problem. All internal and remote admin access to network backup equipment. Again, probably not a problem. Here's where we run into a problem. All internal and remote admin access to network infrastructure, firewalls, routers, switches, etc. We're going to have to add products, folks, products like Cisco Duo, in order to get two-factor authentication into our switches and some of those things. All internal and remote admin access to the organization's endpoints and servers. So we need to be answering yes to all of these. And if you're not answering yes to all of these, then traveler's insurance is either going to increase your fee for the insurance, they're going to decrease the amount that they're going to give you for coverage, or they're going to refuse. And so multi-factor authentication in the coming 12 months is going to be a huge focus for Connecting Point. So let's jump in. We need to talk about the 10 cybersecurity best practices. Okay? 1, first and foremost, protect your data. In daily life, we don't share our social security number. We don't share our credit card numbers. We don't share all of these things when we get an unsolicited email. We don't answer the phone and start giving information to the spammers. Spammers look legit. I don't know how many of you have I keep a little record in my email of different samples that I've gotten from customers, of different samples of phishing software that have come into my email. And it's amazing at how real they look. I had one person say to me, well, it kind of looks like spam, but I really don't have time to check it out. I'm just going to click on it. I knew that I should check it out, but I just didn't. Man, you guys, that's a dangerous place to go. If you don't have time to check it out, close the email. Don't click on stuff. If you click on stuff, you're going to potentially leak your company's data, or potentially leak intellectual property of another company, and you could be on the hook for that. If you're changing out computers, properly destroy hard drives, especially if they have sensitive material. And last but not least, backup. Actually back up and test your backups. The problem isn't backing up, the problem is restoring data. That's what really matters. Okay, so if you are backing up, one of the things that you should do is you should do test restores periodically. Isolate your back. And we do have a couple of products, Dado and Veeam, that actually do automatically boot up a backed up server and they actually see if the server can run. So that's the test that they use to ensure that you're able to restore information when you have your data backed up. Simplify. Use a single solution. Don't get complex. Don't have 3 different backups with 3 different companies. Try to focus on one. Make it a good backup. Test your backups. And again, when possible, use multi-factor authentication. And again, live by the rule. Keep 3 copies of the data on 2 different media types and 1 copy offsite. So if you've got a working copy of your data and you've got a copy locally on a backup drive and you have a copy in the cloud, there's your 3 copies. Okay? You've got it locally on your server, you've got it on a drive locally, a different drive, and you've got it in the cloud. So there's at least 2 different medias, and you've got 1 copy offsite. So that's what you need to do. And I get, guy, you're thinking, Durkee, man, that's really simple. But people don't do this. And it doesn't matter how many times I say it to people, how many times the vendors talk to the people, not everybody is doing it. Avoid pop-ups, avoid unknown emails, avoid links, beware of phishing. Never enter personal or company information in response to an email pop-up, web page, or any form of communication that you didn't initiate. Okay? And there's more and more technology out there to block phishing. So Defender, formerly known as Microsoft ATP, we sell Barracuda Cloud Services, and there's a bunch of new AI products coming on the market, things like Graphis, things like CrowdStrike. Those are all products that are on the market now that do a much better job of scanning out phishing emails. So all of those products are in use by our customers, and knock on wood, we really haven't had any major issues with any of those products, at least to date. Use strong passwords. Again, I get I'm beating a dead horse here. No personal information, no real words. The longer the better, minimum of 8 to 10 characters. And that is also a requirement of many of the cybersecurity application forms. Okay? Create an easy to remember phrase. For those of you who know me, you'll understand why I chose this phrase. 100 bottles of beer on the wall might become 100 capital B, small o, small t, small o, capital B, small o, small t, W, the @ sign, right? So create a phrase that you can remember. Don't write it down. Use some sort of password manager. Don't type the password on networks that you don't control. For instance, if you go to a hotel, I highly recommend you use some sort of VPN connection, NordVPN or any one of those, or VPN back into your company so that you can have better authentication. Make sure multi-factor authentication is turned on for all your Office 365 accounts. Also utilize Azure AD if you want to have multi-factor authentication for your domain logins. And if you need it on your switches, you need it on your firewalls, then you have to look to a product like Cisco Dual. And again, I'm not trying to sell any of these products, but I am just telling you products that we're using for our customers, and they are working pretty well. Connect to secure Wi-Fi. Your Wi-Fi should be secure. It should be encrypted, maybe even the SSID hidden. If you're in a hotel or public Wi-Fi, use VPN connection, NordVPN, Norton VPN, or connect into your VPN at your office. Enable firewall protection at home and at work. Firewalls are your first line of defense. Try to get firewalls that are real firewalls. While Netgear and some of those are getting better, I don't really consider them to be business level products. Netgear, D-Link, perfect for home. But if you have a business, they don't belong in the business environment. Why? Because they don't have some of the advanced features, things like geofencing. So we've sort of taken a turn on blocking countries. At one point, for our convenience, we wanted to leave all the companies open, all 200 countries or whatever that number happens to be. Instead, we are choosing a little different methodology now, and it's based on best practice on how to set up firewalls. We're using the Meraki best practice, we're using the SonicWall best practice, which both recommend blocking as many countries as possible and only permitting a small handful of companies to connect to your network. So for Connecting Point, our default, I believe, we have about 12 countries that we're allowing. Obviously, United States and United States territories. Believe it or not, Netherlands is a big one. There happens to be a lot of websites in Netherlands. For manufacturing firms, Germany happens to be on the list. There's a lot of parts and things that are purchased out of Germany. If you're using Trend Micro, then Japan is one of the countries that has to be open. And we still have a couple of folks that I remember that are on Kaspersky, which is actually a Russian antivirus software. And again, I can't encourage you enough to run away fast from Kaspersky. Create access control lists to allow people to come into your website. We are hosting information for some of our counties, for some of our customers, and we are blocking IP numbers for our management software. We are blocking IP numbers, and we are only allowing a certain number of IPs in. If it's coming from our employees' homes, we let that in. If it's coming from one of our main Connecting Point locations, we let that IP in. Pretty much all other IPs are blocked. So again, I don't think anything is I'm not going to be foolish enough to say that, oh, if you block every IP number, nothing's going to be able to get in. I mean, that's just not true. Somebody could hit a phishing email, somebody could control a machine in the Connecting Point network, or someone could control a machine in one of my employees' homes, and they could gain access. But we're trying to limit our risk. We're trying to limit the amount of places that we have to watch. Okay, that's the whole purpose behind it. If you've got Meraki, we want to make sure Cisco AMP is turned on. If you got SonicWall, we're going to turn on intruder detection and sandboxing. If you've got remote desktop open on your firewall, close it. Unless you're using a RDP gateway service. And even if you're using an RD gateway service, RDP gateway service, I highly recommend you consider a VPN tunnel instead of remote desktop gateway. So remote desktop, while incredibly useful, really doesn't belong public anymore. Invest in some security systems. I'm not talking cameras. I'm talking about AI. I'm talking about things like Graphis and CrowdStrike. I'm talking about a good AV and malware antivirus, things like Trend Micro Cloud, stuff that automatically updates. Okay, do proper backups. I think we've talked about that. And if your machines don't have antivirus, make sure you talk to the IT staff and find out what they're using. Install security software updates and back up your files. Keep Windows patches up to date. We automate that with ConnectCare, with our managed service platform. And don't be the person that ignores the pop-up from Microsoft saying updates are available. If it looks like a Microsoft logo, if it looks like a Microsoft update that says we're about to reboot your computer and install updates, carefully say yes and make sure you accept those updates. If your company happens to send you an email on ways to improve the security of maybe your email, or on ways to improve the software on your iPhone. I just sent one out today to all the Connecting Point employees. I said, hey, update your iPads, update your iPhones. One, make sure it's a legit email. I haven't gotten any calls. Doreen, actually, one of our financial people, she actually called back to me and said, I just want to make sure that's legit, blah, blah, blah. Perfect. So we do have some people that are checking, but again, don't just click on stuff, even if it looks like it's from someone legit. Talk to your IT people. Again, I've killed this iPhone thing about 100 times, but talk to your IT people. You got software that's not updating, call your IT people. You got a question about an email, call your IT people. Are you traveling out of the country? Call your IT people. Don't let something simple become a more complex issue. Don't just click on something and then have to scramble and, oh my gosh, now my mouse is moving and stuff is happening that I don't want it to happen. Employ third-party controls. Monitor what's happening on your network. There's a variety of things out there that you can look at the traffic on your network. Hire some consultants, hire third parties. Do something simple. God, another typo, not good. Something simple. Never leave your computer locked in and unattended. Set up an auto screen lock so that after 15 minutes, your machine locks out. That does create some problems. I got talked to by about 4 employees when we turned that on at Connecting Point. It's still on. We modified it a little. I think we went to 20 minutes, but man, sorry. It's something that we all have to do. And embrace education, embrace training. Connecting Point radio is one source. Every vendor has monthly or quarterly briefings. Test your employees. Send out fake emails. See who is susceptible to fake emails. Know what your company's acceptable use policy and make sure you're meeting that. It's your responsibility to engage in safe online behavior, and I think that is probably the best advice I can give you. Just be safe and know what you're clicking on. So that's about 25 minutes of information. I just wanted to blurt at you guys. I will absolutely take some questions. If anybody has anything that they would like to ask, please let me know. And otherwise, you're welcome to email me. My email is here on the screen. Whoops, sorry, it's not. I just took it down. There we go. My email is on the screen. You can absolutely email me if you have a question. Dave Allard, I know you're on the call today. I know you had a question when you signed in. If I can paraphrase the question, I think you asked something to the effect of, if I have email security, if I have antivirus, if I have, just a second here, let me look. Yeah, Office 365, Advanced Threat Protection, and Trend Micro, is that enough? I think, is that enough? It's hard because I don't know if there's ever such thing as having enough security. I think what happens for all of us is we get to a point where we can only afford so much security, and we're only willing to pay for so much security. And so many times that kind of drives how much security we have. So I think having Defender, or Advanced Threat Protection, I think having Trend Micro, that's awesome. I think I know you guys are kind of moving to the cloud. I think implementing some Azure AD and probably some two-factor authentication would be very appropriate for your company. I think also, making sure your firewalls kind of get locked down. Make sure you've got geofencing turned on, and make sure intrusion detection is turned on. as you have more and more companies or more and more of your employees work from home, um, that's always dicey because everybody that works from home has, one, a different level of knowledge of how their network is set up at home, and two, they may have some old, here's a technical term, old janky equipment. Um, so if they have an old Netgear, encourage them to get a new Netgear. If they have an old D-Link, get them to do a new D-Link. And if the company can afford it, they should maybe put in like small firewalls, like small sonic wall Sohos in their employees when they're working off-site. So yes, I think ATP and Trend Micro is a great start, but I think there's a few other things, Dave, that we should look at to make sure we're protecting you as best we can.
We already with the follow-up with these like backup in the cloud. We have only the cloud company.
It's a big debate. That's a big debate. We'd like to think Microsoft or wherever, AWS, wherever your cloud copy, where your cloud server is at, we'd like to think that they'll never go down. But more and more services like Barracuda and some of those are offering a cloud-to-cloud backup. Cloud-to-cloud backup right now is a pretty popular choice for people who have cloud services. So you can back up your Office 365 from one cloud, from Microsoft's source to another. It's enough provided, one, you have nobody that clicks on a phishing email link and corrupts their email, because if you do, you only have one copy on the cloud, and it's enough as long as nobody clicks a phishing email or gets a virus and it corrupts your shared files up on Microsoft. Okay. Yeah. So that, yeah, you guys have that cloud-to-cloud data backup, so that's good. Absolutely. It's where everybody needs to go. And now the some of the new stuff that we're working on right now is something called immutable backup, which basically means even if somebody like for instance, if somebody would hack your data and they get into your data box and they can see your backups. Okay, one of the dirty tricks of the hackers is they'll try to delete that. So before they attack you, they'll go in and start looking at how your backups are working, and they'll try to click and delete the backups. Well, one of the things that Data offers and AWS and Azure offers is something called immutable backup, which basically means even though the hackers can get in there, they might be able to quote unquote delete the backup. Data, Microsoft, AWS all keep that stuff in their archives for 30 days. So, it's I wish we didn't have to mess around with so much security, but the truth of the matter is we live in a crazy world, man. Good question. Thanks, Dave. Anybody else? We're coming up on our 11:30. I'm trying to respect everybody's time as much as possible. Again, feel free to email me. Email Rick, email Julie, email any one of your Connecting Point reps, Lonnie and Richter and Mary Kay. Any one of those people can give you an answer, and if they can't, they can get back to me, and we can help answer questions. So if nobody has anything, again, I'd like to thank everybody. I know everybody's time is valuable. I absolutely appreciate people showing up. We did our first one last month. I think I had Rick and Julie and maybe just one other person. Now today we're knocking on the door of 10. I hope to be knocking on the door of 25.
There you go. And remember, Dan, we got Windows coming up next month. So
Windows 11, a demo. And then after that, we're going to do Windows, the new server 2022. So we've got a range of, I think we've got our next 3 or 4 events scheduled. So if you go out to Connecting Point site and look for the CP radio link, you can sign up for those. So again, thank you everybody. Great turnout. I'm glad we're seeing some customers, and everybody be safe. Talk to you in a month.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you, everyone.